Have you ever been so badly behaved that your parents threatened you with brat camp? Did brat camp just encourage your bad behavior so much that you went on being a fucking asshole for the rest of your life? Do you enjoy the prospect of endless life without having to worry about the confines of your fleshy body? Break a few meaningless oaths to literal deities and you, my friend, can be a Death Knight. Welcome back to a Compendium of Monsters. It's Death Knight week. Before we continue, slap that subscribe button and offer a prayer to an honorable deity of your choice. Just kidding, they're not real. Woo! Death Knights are challenge level 17, but believe me, they're legal. These medium undead have an armor class of 20, average hit points of 180, a speed of 30 feet, and dark vision out to 120 feet. Death Knights speak Common and Abyssal. For an undead, this is a strange combination. Typical language choices are those the undead spoke while alive, or some languages their creator chooses. Death Knights are immune to necrotic damage, poison damage, and the following conditions: exhausted, frightened, and poisoned. Yeah, if I look like that, I wouldn't be afraid of me either. As befits all powerful creatures of Dungeons & Dragons, Death Knights have magic resistance. If you're not familiar with this ability, it allows the Death Knight to have advantage on all its saving throws against spells and magical effects. Because f*** you and f*** your pathetic magic. Death Knights have the Martial Undead ability, because Lieutenant Undead was already taken and General Undead isn't specific enough. Martial Undead affects both the Death Knight and undead creatures of its choice within 60 feet, affording them advantage on saving throws against features that turn undead. This ability is disabled if the Death Knight is incapacitated, so get cracking. Last, Death Knights are innate spellcasters. They can cast the following spells but must provide components as normal: Command, Compelled Duel, Searing Smite, Hold Person, Magic Weapon, Dispel Magic, Elemental Weapon, Banishment, Staggering Smite, and Destructive Wave. We'll come back to all this later in the How to Murder and Get Murdered by a Death Knight section. Death Knights have a triple multi-attack that allows them to make 3 attacks with their long sword. Each attack deals an average of 9 slashing damage, but the Death Knight infuses its foul essence into its attacks, inflicting an additional 18 necrotic damage. Normally, a creature gets to make a saving throw against additional elemental damage. Nope! It's worthy of note that 81 average damage per round is low for a challenge level 17 creature. Luckily, Death Knights make up for the damage in other horrifying ways. A Death Knight's other action is Hellfire Orb. Now, Gypsy, it's your turn. Damn it, Cloud. The Death Knight hurls its Hellfire Orb at a point it can see within 120 feet, causing the orb to detonate in a gypsy incinerating explosion. Each creature within a 20-foot radius of the explosion must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take an average of 35 fire damage and an average of 35 necrotic damage. A creature takes half damage on a successful save, but this unholy f***erous creation is going to put a hurt on even seasoned adventuring parties. Luckily, it can only be used once per day. Last, Death Knights have the Parry reaction. Parry allows the Death Knight to add 6 points to its armor rating, dramatically decreasing the likelihood it will be hit by a melee attack. However, the Death Knight must be wielding a melee weapon, must be able to see its attacker, and cannot take more than 1 reaction per round, because Meriliths are the only creatures who need to be reactive. Right? Death Knights are created when paladins fall so far from grace that the gods of good, neutral, and evil basically throw up their hands in disgust and condemn that asshole to an eternity of torment. Death Knights are different from Oathbreaker Paladins because Oathbreaker Paladins aren't necessarily evil and typically seek atonement in the form of choosing another paladin oath. The Death Knights refuse to atone for their wrongdoings and can live forever without the fear of death. Why? Death is seen as a reprieve. I beg to differ on the basis of the Abyss and the Nine Hells claiming souls after death to fight in their eternal stupid war, but whatever. Fine, I get it. If you're wondering who is responsible for creating Death Knights, look no further than their languages. Abyssal is an immediate red flag that Death Knights were made by everyone's favorite cuddly wuddly goatman,
Orcus, Demon Prince of Undeath.
Martial Undead is another hint that Orcus is responsible for Death Knights, as his undead typically wield a weird protective influence over other undead. I have a couple issues with Death Knights, both in their stat block and their description. Starting with their stat block, Death Knights have low health, damage, armor rating, and poorly chosen immunities. When immunities are present in a creature's stat block, they effectively double a creature's health. The problem with Death Knights, they don't have immunity to common forms of damage. Poison damage is largely useless against most creatures with high challenge levels, and necrotic damage can easily be substituted for fire, lightning, or cold damage. Or the fact that Death Knights aren't even resistant to non-magical weapon damage. Why, wizards? Why? A Death Knight's armor rating annoys me because it's only a 20 thanks to the Death Knight shield. In order to cast spells with somatic components or make a two-handed melee attack, Death Knights drop their armor class to 18. Just junk the shield and give the Death Knight magical +2 armor. Challenge level 17 creatures should have an armor class of 19 anyways. Sure, parry is a factor here, but martial classes have 2 or 3 attacks each at this point. So what? The fighter gets parried once? Oh, the horror. A Death Knight's description leaves much to be desired.
A Death Knight retains their ability to cast divine spells, but cannot use its magic to heal.
I mean, after the gods cut Death Knights off from their divine teat, Death Knights are little more than glorified warlocks in need of a new sugar daddy who tolerates a no-strings-attached relationship. This opens the door for Death Knights to pick up patrons, orcas, and have a reason to serve an entity besides themselves. It would be nice if Death Knights actually had a spell or feature that allowed them to permanently command lesser undead, devils, or demons. Just attracting followers in one of those categories is annoyingly incomplete. A control feature would give Death Knights the added bonus of f***ing with Necromancer player characters. DMs! Death Knights are a gnarly encounter that can challenge even the strongest adventuring parties. However, Death Knights will not face your party of universe-renowned adventurers alone. Assuming your Death Knight is intended as the big bad of this campaign arc, you need to give them a colorful array of supporting minions. Minions can be undead, devils, or demons depending on your campaign setting and desired difficulty for the encounter. Death Knights have disadvantage to stealth rolls thanks to their plate armor, so there's no possibility of ambush unless your players roll absolute trash on their perception checks. When starting combat, keep an eye on how many of your players' characters stay within close range of one another. A 20-foot radius is surprisingly big, especially if no one likes being too far from the designated healer. During their turn, Death Knights almost exclusively use their multi-attack and can choose to pair it with one of their bonus action smites, Searing Smite or Staggering Smite. Compelled Duel, Magic Weapon, and Elemental Weapon are more of a waste of a spell slot than useful in a fight. I'll make an argument for the sake of Compelled Duel. You can establish a dramatic 1-versus-1 showdown. But that's really it. Death Knights have above average intelligence and are able to determine that forcing charisma saving throws on paladins is a bad idea. However, if up against a paladin with large protective auras, the Death Knight will focus fire on that player character. Being a former paladin helps you size up your enemy, I guess. Death Knights will use command to either order an offending player character to approach or to grovel. A groveling creature falls prone and allows a Death Knight's minions to attack it with advantage. Hold Person is a great spell to use against player characters with low wisdom scores because a failed save causes paralysis. Paralysis grants undead minions advantage to hit the player character, and any successful hits count as critical hits. Dispel Magic is situationally useful as it can stop magical effects that may adversely affect a Death Knight or its minions, but it may be better to force Constitution saving throws by dealing damage to the caster holding the spell, if possible. Banishment takes priority over Staggering Smite because it can safely remove a dangerous enemy from combat. Destructive Wave is an incredible spell that affects all targets within a 30-foot radius of the Death Knight and forces them to make a Constitution saving throw or take thunder damage, necrotic damage, and get knocked prone. If your players like to summon lots of minions, Destructive Wave is good at clearing them. Since they don't have to fear death, Death Knights fight until destroyed or until enemy combatants have vanished from the field. Wherever you have them reanimate is up to you, or your players if they take the Death Knight's corpse and dismantle it a la Judge. Players! Don't stand near each other and bring your own healing. You can silence a Death Knight and force it to maneuver around to use its spells, but keep in mind that Hellfire Orb is not a spell. You can attempt to fish Destructive Wave or Hellfire Orb casts with spells that summon minions. Conjure woodland beings, conjure minor elementals, conjure animals. You get it. Your bread and butter for this fight, however, is Heat Metal. Death Knights can't take off their plate, and Heat Metal continually forces a Constitution saving throw against disadvantage to attack rolls and ability checks while it's active. You may want to consider using a 4th level spell slot to cast Heat Metal so you don't have to worry about Dispel Magic, but you absolutely will need to worry about the Death Knight sending all its minions after you. Maybe Heat Metal, Wild Shape into an owl, and fly away? Speaking of saving throws, looking at these numbers, Death Knights are only weak to intelligence saving throws. Enemies abound is out of the question, as Death Knights are immune to fear. Don't bother with spells that force charisma saving throws. It's not weighed in your favor unless your spell save DC is higher than 20. Could happen, but unlikely. Remember, a fight with a Death Knight is a fight to the death, but will it be yours or theirs? Get creative, have fun, but stay alive, will you? At this point, you should be close enough to level 20 that it would be a shame if you didn't make it. A real shame. Anyways, what do you all think about Death Knights? Let me know in the comments below. A special thank you to my patrons. And thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, share my video on your Twitter, Facebook, or other social media, and make the leap to become one of my patrons on Patreon. I'll see you all next time.